Hello, everybody, and welcome to another segment of the Real Mike Pittman podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pittman, and joining me on the show today is Karen Johnson. Karen is the COO of the newly opened Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri, that sits on the old Pruitt-Igoe site, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct, at Jefferson and Cass.
Yep. So, Karen, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good. Wanted to have you tell us a little bit about Karen in terms of, how did you get to Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital in terms of your career path there, in terms of, I know you were at BJC before you went there, and I know I got several questions for you too. So just kind of give us a little tidbit as to, how Karen wound up there, and then we can kind of get into some of the questions I have for you.
All righty. So actually, I'm a native of St. Louis, born and raised. I went to, of course, the question is, what high school did you go to? I went to University City, for those who wanted to know. I actually went to college at KU, nursing program. And when I graduated from KU, I started working as a nurse at Missouri Baptist Medical Center. I actually was a telemetry cardiac nurse for a while, for 8 years, did staff nursing and charge nursing. And then I transferred to labor and delivery and worked there for 8 years. I was a charge nurse, assistant nurse manager, and I enjoyed labor and delivery. I really did. And actually, I got the opportunity to actually help open Progress West, which is a BJC facility in O'Fallon, Missouri. And so I was the women and infants manager, service line manager there. And I did that for a while, transferred back to Missouri Baptist, did a little bit of managing postpartum, NICU, interim director, program manager, did a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work across BJC. And at Missouri Baptist, I actually helped start the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee there at Missouri Baptist. So did a lot of work. And then I actually just so happened, one of my, I would call her a mentor. She called me one day and asked if I would be interested in talking to someone about Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital. And so started talking to people and interviewed, and I ended up as the COO CNO for Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered my first question in terms of how you chose a career in the healthcare industry. And this particular area, specifically in the Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital, located on the old Pruitt-Igoe site. We hear people talk about food deserts, but is there such a thing as healthcare deserts as well?
Yes, it is. If people do not have access to healthcare in their community, that is a healthcare desert. So yes, there is a such thing as a healthcare desert.
Now, would you say there's a correlation to food deserts and healthcare in terms of the overall health, specifically of low income or Black people, if you will, in these particular areas?
So, if there's a food desert, that causes health problems, because if there's a food desert, then we have a tendency to have more fast foods in those areas, and people do not eat healthy. So if they're not eating healthy, then there's the risk of obesity, other high blood pressure, and other medical disorders. And so with that being said, that affects your health, correct? And so if you don't have access to healthcare, that causes many problems.
Now, what's a typical day like for you at Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital?
For me and my role, or just for the hospital in general?
I guess both you and your role in the hospital as well, I guess. 24 hours a day, correct?
It's 24/7. Yes, it is. It is. We have 15 emergency room beds, and we have 3 inpatient beds. We have imaging services. We have MRI, ultrasound, radiology, and CT. So right now we just opened January 16th of 2024. So we just been open a little over a couple of weeks. Actually, tomorrow I think will be the 3rd week. No, yeah, the 4th one, 3rd. And so anyway, so we are getting our feet wet. We've seen a total in January, we saw 85 patients, a total of 85 patients. So which is not bad for just being open for 2 weeks. So it's a lot of hustle and bustle. Honing in on our processes, making sure that we sharpen those processes. So yeah, we just take it day by day.
Now I know there was some controversy about naming the hospital Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital. Can you share some of your insights on who he was and your thoughts on the name?
So actually, Homer G. Phillips, he was a lawyer actually. When I was younger and didn't know much about him, I always thought Homer G. Phillips was a physician, but actually he was a lawyer. And he helped raise over $1 million to fund a hospital for the African-American community. And actually he was murdered before the hospital opened. And so in my thoughts, he had a vision of making sure that healthcare was provided for people of color, African American, and in our community. And so, in my mind, I'm paying honor to his legacy to have healthcare provided in the Black community.
Now I know he also it's also a training ground that was used to train Black doctors throughout the Midwest, or was only one of 3, I believe it was, in the country.
Yes. Homer G. Phillips, the original Homer G. Phillips was amazing. It was a 600-bed hospital, and it trained many Black doctors, which we are thankful for that. And also it had a nursing school for the Black nurses as well.
Interesting. What's your thoughts on that? Do you feel like his legacy has been tarnished by naming that Homer G. Phillips? Because a lot of young people probably do not know who Homer G. Phillips was. I know there is a documentary that's on Amazon Prime that talks about Homer G. Phillips, which anyone that hasn't seen it, I would actually tell them to go take a look at this.
The Color of Medicine. Is that the one?
Yes.
That is a great documentary. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think it gives a good history and tells about who he is. And I guess there's the detractors, if you will, or I think these were individuals that had formerly, I guess, were employed there at the hospital. Was that correct?
Yes, the Nurses Association, the Alumni Nurses Association. Yes. And so you asked me, do I think we're paying honor to his legacy? I do, because I feel like we're in the community and we're providing this service. We're providing 24/7 healthcare services to the community.
Which is, I grew up in St. Louis, and I remember I used to take family members over to a Homer G. Phillips Hospital, and as well, and we grew up in South St. Louis, so I remember, it's number 1 and number 2, and I remember when that hospital closed, when they closed Homer G. Phillips, and there was a lot of controversy surrounding that then because the gentleman, I think it was Mayor Shamel, that ran for mayor of St. Louis, and he ran on the promise of keeping Homer G. Phillips Hospital open. But then once he got in, it was almost like it was a double cross, and that was it was a bone of contention with a lot of Black people in St. Louis as a result of that. And then when they closed, it created a lot of bad blood because they felt that this was our hospital, and they cited they couldn't afford to keep it open, but they waste a lot of money on a lot of other things. So just the fact that it was in the Black community, in my opinion, I might be wrong, that they didn't want to see it stay open because of the amount of money that it was costing, and figuring that, most low income blacks weren't paying taxes that would keep it open. It's mainly, your more affluent areas. And so, it is what it is, but
it's sad. It's sad though.
Yeah. So I'll take it that you had some history with Homer G. Phillips Hospital then, in terms of maybe going there, or you never did any, what is it called, a candy striping back then at Homer G. Phillips?
I was a candy striper, but not at Homer G. Phillips. However, I do have some connections. Actually, I probably wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Homer G. Phillips. And I say that because, well, one, my mother and her sisters were all born at Homer G. Phillips. And then my dad's sister, so my aunt, they were from Alexandria, Louisiana. And actually, my aunt moved to St. Louis to attend Homer G. Phillips Nursing School. So she graduated from Homer G. Phillips Nursing School. And when my father got out of the service, he decided to move from Louisiana, and he moved here with my aunt. And that's when he met my mother.
Okay.
So kind of, yeah.
So again, I know it's been a lot of pushback, whatever. Are they actually striking down there too? Is anybody holding picket signs up about Homer G. Phillips?
No.
Okay.
I haven't seen any picket signs.
Okay. No. Let's pivot a little bit, and we start talking about health, particularly in the Black community. I mean, and based on your experience, with a short time with Homer G. Phillips, but I guess in the healthcare industry itself, and then what are some of the major illnesses that you see that affect the Black community?
Heart disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, stroke, diabetes, definitely, and cancer.
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, because of poor healthcare, this is one of the reasons, when I say poor healthcare, and I got to put food deserts in there as well, because I know our diets can contribute to a lot of the issues that we have in terms of how we eat the fast foods, a lot of fruits and vegetables, which hopefully Mr. Lawrence is going to take care of that problem down there.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. But, and it's so prevalent in our community, high blood pressure, or as Black folk call it, you got sugar, not diabetes.
Just diabetes, you got sugar.
Yeah, exactly. But I think these are some of the things that, maybe even as we educate, and maybe that's something that's on the agenda for Homer G. Phillips as well, is to, do more educating of our people in terms of healthcare, because, I always say we don't need better healthcare, we just need to take better care of our health. And I think by doing that, we can eliminate a lot of these things. And I think it needs to be a group effort. You have a lot of churches that are in the St. Louis area. And the reason I always kind of hit on the church is because that's probably the one place that you can get a number of Black people at one time, where you can talk to them and they're not finger popping or hey, or what, whatever, but they're sitting still for at least an hour and a half. And, I think you can bring in those type of individuals, healthcare fairs or whatever, that can speak to the masses. But again, that's just my opinion on that. But I just know that our healthcare is terrible. I understand too that
can I piggyback after something?
Sure, go right ahead.
So one of the things that really excited me about coming to Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital was the community and the community work that we plan to do as well. As you talked about, education is key, and preventive care is very, very important. So as you educate people and have them take preventative measurements, then we can reduce these heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, diabetes. It's all about education and being able to provide that preventative care. And I agree, the churches are a great source to host health fairs. And also we want to partner with our community partners as well to help with educating the community. So I'm really excited about the future and what we can do for preventive care. The cost of will be so much better if we can have people participate in preventive healthcare on the front end versus not having that education and going through, and then you end up with, diabetes, and then you're on dialysis, and then all those healthcare costs add up. When if we can educate and prevent ahead of time, we can reduce that cost.
Yeah. You pay now, will pay later, basically, I understand too that there are plans for the hospital to be a training ground for Black doctors. Can you speak to that?
So I will tell you what I know. So one of the reasons Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital exists is because I don't know if you're familiar with Ponce University. And so there's Ponce University is a medical university that focuses on low socioeconomic students. And so it's a very diverse population. And so as they go through their classes, we will be able to, as we grow, we will be able to have them come through and train at the hospital.
Okay. So is there any numbers that you're looking at in terms of 50 or 100, and also that of doctors that you would anticipate that you would train over the course of, and I guess it's 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure exactly what apprenticeships are for. I don't know if they call them apprenticeships, but they're training for doctors. I know after you get out of medical school, I can't think of the term.
Residency.
Residency, yes. That they can do could they do a residency there at Homer G?
Yeah, that is our plan. Yes, it is. Definitely. It's very important for us to be able to provide that. It's important to have doctors of color in the community. It's really important.
I know a lot of older Blacks, they feel more comfortable around Black doctors because they feel like they know them better than, I guess, another doctor is Hispanic or whatever it might be, because they can identify, they might have family members that got sugar, or high blood pressure. So there is a certain comfort level that they would have, with doctors, people that look like them, because they can understand the issues. The staff that you have at Homer G right now, how would you break down the staff that you have now in terms of ethnicity?
We're probably, I think between 65 and 70% of people of color in the overall staff.
Okay. And so you said there are 3, can you run it down again in terms of how it's broken down? They got 3 beds and how many?
We have 3 inpatient beds. So those are beds that we can admit patients to and keep them overnight or a couple of nights, several nights. Then we have 15 emergency room beds. And then we have imaging services. We have MRI, CT scan, ultrasound, and radiology. And we also have social worker on staff as well. Okay.
Are there any plans that you know of to actually expand the hospital, the footprint of the hospital, to build on, to make it bigger? Because I know that was one of the bones of contention. People felt that this wasn't a hospital. It felt that it was like I guess more the urgent care center or whatever. Okay, what's your feeling on that?
Well, first, let me say it's not an urgent care center. It is a hospital. A hospital's definition of 3 inpatient beds or more, and that we do have that. So that is a hospital. Right now, I'm focusing on getting this hospital up and running. I will eventually definitely like to expand. That would be great because I feel like we will be very busy and we will need more inpatient beds and more services for this community.
I mean, outside of the obvious, how important is this hospital from a landmark standpoint?
This hospital is very, very important. We have not had access to 24/7 healthcare in this community in probably over 2 generations. So this is very, very, very important. It's in medicine, minutes, seconds makes a difference. And having our facility where it is, we can save someone's life, like we actually did Friday. So this is very, very important. You've heard of people doing those drop off and leaves where they just drop the patient off and go. So if someone does that, we can help stabilize that patient and transfer that patient to a higher level of care. Whereas if we were not there, they would have to drive further, and that can make a big difference in that person's life.
Yeah, talk about the life that was saved. Was a question I was going to ask about that. What happened? Can you elaborate on that?
So the patient actually, emergency services was called to get the patient. The patient was unresponsive. The patient did have a heartbeat when EMS, the fire department, picked the patient up, but the patient immediately went into cardiac arrest as soon as they put the patient on the stretcher. And so we were the closest facility, and so they brought the patient to us, and we actually, the patient came to us and did not have a heart rate, and we worked on the patient and got his heart rate back. Able to transfer him out. Now, if we were not in that area, that would have most likely been a different outcome. It would have been a different outcome.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by seconds matter. Minutes, seconds matter. And so that's why it's so important that we are where we are, because we're able to provide that that care to patients. And there's trauma patients. We're not a trauma one center, but we can stabilize a patient, or at least get that patient together and move them to transfer them to a higher level of care.
Okay. Where do you see the hospital 5 years from now?
Oh, I'm busy, very, very busy. 5 years from now, I would see us outgrowing where we are, and hopefully looking to build somewhere else. Well, in that area.
And what's go ahead. I'm sorry, Karen.
What's the address?
Yeah.
1320 North Jefferson, St. Louis, Missouri, 63106.
Okay. In terms of economic development for this area, in the Pure Idaho area, how important do you think this hospital is for future economic development? I don't know how many times people say, I want to live next door to a hospital, but I think in terms of economic development and things that's helped to stabilize a community.
Well, just having that hospital there, it creates more jobs for people. We have jobs in the hospital from, housekeeping to physicians. We can help employ many people. So that helps right there with the economic development, being able to provide those jobs.
In terms of funding, where does the hospital get their funding from? Is it, I guess, through patients you see that have insurance or Medicare, or do you receive any federal or state funding for the hospital?
So, of course, our patients, so we accept patients of all private pay and Medicare, Medicaid. And then also we have what am I trying to say? Donors.
I have donors. Okay. I know they're building I call it the SPY Center, but
NGA.
The
NGA.
NGA, I call it the SPY Center. This is $1.7 billion project that they're building. I guess it's adjacent or right near your development there. And I think
across the street.
Yeah, it's scheduled for completion, I believe. Is it next year?
2025, yes.
Yeah, completion. And I know this, and it's going to employ about 3,000 people. And, most of the jobs are going to be $100,000 a year, or, six-figure jobs, 3,000. Are you, I wouldn't say concerned, but when that happens, do you feel like the demographics of the area will change based upon this employer there, and with the federal government stepping in and creating 3,000, six-figure jobs in that area?
that's only natural that there will be some change with that type of facility opening up in that area. But my hopes is that we will still balance that and still have the Black community will still be there. I think we will just blend and it'll be just a very diverse population.
I know that the overall plan there too, and speaking with Paul McKee, who we had on the show a few weeks back, where he talked about this, the overall plan and a number of housing units that we'd like to build down there. I believe, and I'm sure, when you bring in 3,000 jobs that are six-figure jobs, and the fact that most people want to live, close to where they work at, back in the day, it was white flight. You had a lot of white people moving out of the city, moving out to the county. So now you're seeing that thing reversed to a certain degree, whereby, a lot of whites want to come back into the city, and a lot of Black folk are out in the county now because, when you got your hockey team, your baseball team, and a lot of the things that take place from an entertainment standpoint, the revenue generators are basically in your downtown areas, the riverfront. So from a demographic standpoint, I could see that there would be some shift and change. And I know one of the things that Paul said when I interviewed him, he said, if it's all Black, it's a failure. And if it's all white, it's a failure. So I'm interested to see exactly how that plays out and how the home building will take place. Because right now, the cost of, to build a home, to probably build a decent home in that area, you're probably looking at $300,000. So now when you look at the demographics of the area, individuals that are able to afford a $300,000 home, just based on it, the raw data of the demographics of that area probably can't support that. But once the SPY Center is there, what other type of jobs will it create as a result that are offshoot jobs as a result of that? That can be, livable wage jobs or jobs that, someone could afford to build a $300,000 home. And I know that the approach, in my opinion, is probably going to need to be used to be something. Right now, they call it Gen X housing, I guess, where you have I call it a house with mother-in-law quarters in it, where the elderly parents can stay and you can charge them rent. And, something like that, it's got to be something that's very creative. It can't just be, the same thing that it's always worked, because a lot of the things, and I think Mr. McKee, Paul found this out, a lot of the things that might work in traditional communities don't work in non-traditional communities. So, and I think he got an eye-opener on that with the grocery store. And in the interview that I had with Mr. Johnson, I was very impressed with his overall knowledge of working in markets such as where this one is, and the fact that the approach that he's taking, I think the store is going to be very successful, and I'm rooting for him. And I think that same thing can hold true as it relates to this development over there as well. So, because so often, we see, gentrification that takes place whenever, areas that they go down so low, and then next thing you know, a good example of that, and I always point to it, is Lafayette Square in St. Louis. I grew up in South St. Louis in the projects, and I remember Lafayette Square was the slums when I grew up in the 70s. All these old Victorian style houses, when the Black people lived in them, they were just raggedy. So all of a sudden you had a lot of people start coming and buying them, restoring these Victorian style houses. Now it's a gated community. You probably can't touch a house over there for under $500,000. So I know it can happen. And this is, right in South St. Louis. So, and it's kind of like the hole in the donut because, you still got the Peabody projects there, but, a lot of the other things around it, the condominiums coming up. Park Avenue was the ghetto, It used to be a place over there, a Chinese fast food place we used to go into, Mong Fong. He was the guy's name that owned it. And he owns the Chinese place over now right down the street from the Fox Theater. And, he rents that.
Oh, yes, I know. I think I know who that is.
Yeah. I remember him from back in the day. I remember him when he first came to this country, because he went to Clinton School
Mm-hmm.
And they walked him around the school, and he's looking like little Bruce Lee in his suit on one of his first day of school. So I remember that. And now, again, like I said, he's grown that thing and owns the one down the street from the Fox. And when they have major shows there, he'll rent that parking lot out and make a nice piece of change. It's been years ago when I was down and I ran into him, and I had the opportunity to talk to him. So I'm very curious as to how that whole thing will, pan out. I know that some recent legislation that was proposed down there could possibly, take some of that land away from Mr. McKee, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that doesn't happen. He spent a lot of money. I'm rooting for him. I don't live in St. Louis anymore, but I have a lot of roots there, and I understand the history there as well. And I'm definitely behind him 100% for him to bring this project to fruition. I know some of the arguments that have taken place down there as a result of saying, he's got all this property, he doesn't take care of it. But if you've already spent $100 million and ain't nobody else down there doing anything, it's not like it just got raggedy after he started getting the property. It was raggedy in North St. Louis when I lived down there. I grew up in the South Side, but we later moved to North St. Louis. So I'm well familiar with it. So I think that I could speak on it to a certain extent. So, but anyway, I ask you, where do you see the hospital 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Where do I see myself 5 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about what else I can do to make the community better, and enhancing what we already have, making it bigger and better. And then also later on, I'm thinking about retirement. Not just
You can't retire. You got to stay there. If Mr. Johnson is 82, you mean
Mr. Lawrence?
Mr. Lawrence? Yeah, Mr. Lawrence. Yeah, he's 82.
I know, and he said, you can't. You got 2 to 4 years. He said, I listened to his interview. He said after you stop, you have 2 to 4 years. And my dad says that all the time. And my dad is 84, and he's still working. And he says, I'm not gonna stop working, because if I stop working, then that's it. It feels like as soon as you stop, your body just gets off and that's it. And so when Mr. Lawrence said that, when I listened to him today, and when he said that, I said, that's the same thing my dad says. So, so no, I plan to still be helping the community, and making sure that we're offering the services that's needed, and doing more services, developing those that have started at the hospital, developing them to bigger and better roles. So I'm all about developing people, educating. So that's where I see myself to continuing doing that in the next 5 years.
Okay. In your opinion, what can be done to attract more young blacks into the medical field?
Seeing people like me, seeing other people of color in those positions, going out in the community, going out into the schools and having those conversations. I always love talking to young Black students, just to show them, look, you see me, you can do it too. So just having those conversations with the schools and partnering with them and doing community service.
What effect did you see COVID-19 have on the Black healthcare professionals and the Black community as a whole?
The Black community, more people that look like us died from COVID. And that's because as we talk again about healthcare deserts and people not trusting healthcare, that's huge. A lot of people do not trust healthcare, and that's one thing that we need to focus on, is building that trust. And I think having people that look like us, more in the medical field, will help build that trust. Relationships are very important. And when you have people that you can communicate with and be authentic with, and people that can understand you when you say, I have sugar, they understand what you're talking about. That helps build that trust, and we can go a long way with that. But you asked me about COVID. So COVID,
Yes,
I
okay.
think,
No, you just fine.
so COVID did a number on our population. Like I said, a lot of people didn't trust. A lot of people don't want the vaccine. They feel it's a conspiracy theory. So I think that has hindered us a lot. On the Black healthcare workers, COVID did a lot on all healthcare workers. Actually, I mean, that was a lot of work. If you worked in the healthcare field during COVID, and COVID is not over for those who think it is, it's not. There was a lot of stress, a lot of changes, seeing people die, young people die. So I think it really affected the healthcare. However, I think it also show how well we can work in the middle of chaos too, as a team.
I know I mentioned churches. Is there anybody else, entities or organizations down there that you feel that you can partner with in terms of getting the word out about healthcare, about careers in healthcare, and about just the whole health of the people as a whole?
Mm-hmm. Churches, Black fraternities and sororities, they do a lot of community service. So partner with them as well. Other healthcare systems, there's like Affinia Health, Care STL, those type of entities, partner with them as well, just to get that education out.
Do you feel, I know this is a smaller unit as opposed to, BJC and one of your massive units, but do you feel like this hospital is going to be in competition with other healthcare institutions?
I don't look at it as us being in competition. When I look at healthcare, I look at us all as one, which I know we're not, but we're all have that common goal, which I hope we do, is to make sure that we take care of the patient. The patients are first, the patients and community, being able to partner together, because sometimes we have to partner with another facility to make sure that we're providing the right education for those patients. Sometimes there's something that I may not be able to provide in my hospital, but I can refer you to another facility that can help you with those resources.
I know right now, at least from my own personal observations, when I look at the number of doctors, that are getting into the field, it seems like it's heavily populated, at least now, with a lot of doctors, I call Indian doctors, or from India or Pakistan or whatever that might be. Is that a trend that you see that's going to only increase moving forward, that is going to possibly continue to outpace Blacks getting into the field, even though there are people of color, but again, they don't speak the language that we speak, and not so much from an English standpoint, but what we call our illnesses. White people get diabetes, Black people get sugar. White people get gout, Black people get the gout. So it's just things like that, I think, that are important in what you stated too, in terms of feeling more comfortable being taken care of by somebody that looks like you. And in terms of even younger people, knowing that their grandma or grandfather or their grandaunt is going to be taken care of by somebody that can sympathize with them too. Let me ask you this, in terms of the previous roles that you had at BJC, how did you feel it prepared you for the role that you're in now?
So as I mentioned earlier, I've been in several different roles within BJC, and just being flexible and dealing with change. I think that's very important. Being able to deal with change and adapt to change in a positive manner prepared me for this role. because one of the, you know, earlier you said the word pivot. And if you ask any of the employees at Homer G. Phillips Memorial Hospital, they will tell you that is my word. I'm always mentioning pivot, because you do have to pivot, especially when you're building a facility from ground up. You think it will go one way, and of course, a hurdle comes at you, and you have to pivot and do something different. And I think with BJC, because BJC was such a large healthcare system, I had the opportunity to meet different people, which helped, you know, and I had different mentors that helped a lot. And then I had the opportunity to help Open Progress West too. So that helped prepare me for the role I'm in now.
Are they still hiring there at the hospital, or are you at full staff now, or how do you
We're still hiring. We're still hiring. Can I tell you what we're looking for?
Sure. That's my next question.
We're looking for nurses. We're looking for lab techs. We're looking for paramedics, EMTs. We're looking for imaging services techs as well, especially MRI and CT. So if you know anyone, we're also looking for a pharmacy tech. So if you know anybody in those positions, please reach out. You could go to the hospital's website, and there's information on what you can do to apply.
Now, I know they have, I call trade schools, whatever, that teach some of these particular type skills that you're referring to. You know, I know they have, you know, you go to school and be a dental assistant, or you get a certificate in that. Are you guys partner with any of those type of organizations down there, or to you know, maybe get some of those individuals as they finish up their training where they can basically start right with you guys?
You know, we are not partnered with anyone yet, but we are actually, that is something on our to-do list moving forward.
Okay. As with anything, and anybody that's successful in life, I always ask the question, because nobody got there by themselves. When I hear people talk about it, this person is a self-made man or a self-made woman, it does something to me, because one, you can't wake yourself up in the morning. So there's a certain aspect of spiritual aspect, in my opinion, that goes with that. If you know, God don't wake you up in the morning, you're not getting up. I don't care how good you think you are. So, and also too, you know, we stand on the backs, shoulders of others that have went before us. Who has been a role model for you? Maybe not so necessarily even in the healthcare field, but just a role model that's basically, you know, encourage you to move forward and do the things that you've done so far in life.
Actually, I would have to say my parents. My mom and dad are divorced, but my mom is a very strong woman, and she family is everything to her. Family is everything to her. And she is always instilling in us the you can do this, you know, so proud of you. She is very, very supportive, and always has been. My father, he is the one who gives us, he used to talk to us all the time when we were younger, and would always tell us about life lessons and give us these little quotes. He always lived by, you know, you take the negative. If something negative happens to you, you take the negative and you turn it into a positive. So those are things that I remember, and he's very supportive as well. So I have a very good support system that has helped me get me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And that's family and friends as well.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, you know, to have, specifically if you got someone in your family that's encouraging you. I know growing up for me, you know, sports figures, you know, were kind of our role models. You know, Muhammad Ali was one of my role models, but I have an uncle and aunt actually too that live in Cleveland, Ohio, who was a role model for me. You know, they've been married 70 or 71 years.
Oh my goodness.
That in itself, I believe, speaks volumes in terms of, you know, the Black family stand together, raising your children, So them to be good citizens. And I don't know if he's listening to the show tonight, but he's been a role model for me for a number of years. And I appreciate that in him. And even though he lives in Ohio and I'm, a long ways away, but I know I could always pick up the phone and call him. He would always say encouraging things. So, and just the mere fact, him and his wife have been together over 70 years, that says a lot, and especially in this day and time, because when you burn the bacon now, people ready to get rid of you, that's definitely something. And talking about family, I mean, tell us, you have brothers and sisters, and maybe some of the careers, are any of those, if you do have, are they in the healthcare field as well?
Yes. So I'm the oldest of three. And so then I have my younger brother. He's actually, he was a St. Louis City policeman. He was on the police force for St. Louis City. And he spent 20 years and then he retired. However, before he retired, he went back to school and became a nurse.
Really?
Yes. So he said I inspired him to do that, and he became a nurse. And we actually used to work for the same healthcare system. But yeah, he's a nurse. So that's wonderful. And then my little sister, well, my younger sister, she works in the dental healthcare field.
Okay.
So dental health. So she manages a dentist's office.
Historically, I guess back in the day, my mom worked in healthcare at St. Anthony's Hospital, back in the day, and the newborn nursery for, I don't know, a number of years. And, back in the day, I guess you didn't see a lot of male nurses, but now, that thing is switched around. I see a lot of male nurses. So it's not one of those things that, historically we'd always thought about women being in those roles, just like you think of secretary. When you think of secretary, the first thing you think about, I know I do, you think it's going to be a woman. When I thought about a nurse back in the day, I thought about a woman. But now those, it's shifting now because, one, it's a good career because, once you're in that field, you can go about anywhere in the country and get a job.
That's what I love about nursing.
Yeah. And I have a niece that's actually in the healthcare system. Matter of fact, a niece and a cousin. I have a cousin that's in Cleveland, and she works for the VA, and I have a niece that actually works in the VA hospital. So they're actually in the healthcare field as well. Talking about family and healthcare, what effects can the healthcare profession have on your family life?
So when I was a staff nurse, it wasn't bad because I worked 3 days a week. So that wasn't too bad. However, I worked nights. And so I was on a night schedule, and having young kids, they adapted my night schedule. So during the summertime, we would stay up all hours of the night and then sleep during the day. So, but it was flexible. Now being in the position that I am now, that is more cost for more time that you have to do. So it could be kind of taxing on the family. Just because you're on call, you get calls on the weekend. So, but it's pros and cons and stuff.
Yeah. So the short period of time that you've been on the job, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges or hurdles that, you're trying to overcome? I know hiring is probably one at this point, but some of the biggest hurdles that you feel that, you have to get over to get to the next level.
So one of the things, staffing, yes, making sure, because as we talked about COVID in the past, COVID has done a number on the nursing population, and it's just that it created jobs, a lot of traveling nursing. So the salaries are really high. So competing with other healthcare facilities is challenging.
Yeah, I know a lady who was formerly a stewardess, worked on airlines, and she went back to school, got her nursing papers, and now she's a traveling nurse, and she making a whole lot of money. I couldn't believe
Yes.
the
Yes.
amount of money
Yes.
that she's making. I'm talking six figures,
Yes. Yes.
that she's making. She said, well, I might have to go, here for, 2 weeks or go over here. But she said the money is unbelievable. And,
It is.
the fact that you're not stationary, you travel, but, she said, well, I can make enough in 2 weeks and take off a month. I
Yes.
said, oh, okay, well, I guess it just depends on, how hard you want to work and how often you want to work as well. So, but that's another type of message. I mean, it doesn't do you any good for what you're trying to do because you're trying to get permanent staff, but just looking at the industry as a whole, there are a lot of opportunities there to make a nice living and to make that kind of money for a long period of time, because, you look at maybe some of the rural areas, and that might be maybe one of the drawbacks, some of the towns and places that you have to go, from a culture standpoint, it might not have what you need, but if you there just to get the work in and get the money and get out of there, then, it's not like I'm going out finger popping every night because, because I'm at work, So I guess that's another way to look at that. When you look at, I guess, some of the hurdles and things that you said you have to overcome, from a monetary standpoint, I guess being in the position to whereby you're able to offer competitive salaries, I know, or the salaries competitive, or because you're a smaller organization, can a nurse, outside of being a traveling nurse, there's a BJC nurse, what they make more than a Homer G. Phillips nurse, based upon the same type of experiences, what you say, or is it kind of across the board?
So one of the things that we do is we go out and we review the market rate. So the pay rate, we look at the market and see what the average rate is for whatever position we're looking at. One of the things, we will not be the top paying employer in St. Louis. We will not, but we try to be as competitive as possible. One of the things that's also important to us is that we find employees who share the mission and vision that we have. We may not be able to pay you the top dollar, but if you look at the whole and look at the opportunities that you have and what you're doing for the community, we hope that weighs in a lot.
I know it's early right now in terms of, the hospital, but do you, in terms of, I guess maybe that's one of the selling features in terms of having employee longevity, as opposed to, I'm going to stay here a year and I'm going to go and get out here and get the money. So you're basically selling them on the vision as well as the, the opportunity to do good things for the community. I'll take it then, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions, Karen. I appreciate you. I know you probably worked hard all day today, and this is probably a long day for you. So I'm not going to hold you much longer. But when you talk about your staff and those individuals that you oversee, so you're pretty much responsible for everything as it relates to the operations of the hospital, then, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So the different vendors that the hospital uses, so that does the laundry, that does the cleanup, type of vendors. How do you select those individuals to make sure that you're in tune with the community and those dollars that are can still circulate within the community?
Some of the vendors were already chosen previously before I started, but one of the we like to look at Black-owned businesses. We actually, the vendor that supplies our food for our patient is North Sarah Food Hub. So, which is a Black-owned business in St. Louis, and so we try to partner with those in the community to help. To help the community. So we try to partner with Black-owned businesses, but that's not all we partner with. but we look for people who have the same, like I said, the same mission and the same vision that we have as well. Like our janitorial service is very excited about being a part of our facility, and want to make sure that we shine and that we make sure that we are where we need to be to care for our patients. Okay. So we want to partner with those who have that same like mind like us.
Yeah, I think that's very important too, because now I think the economic base that hopefully you'll be able to create here when you have these individuals that are part of the community, and when they spend those dollars within the community, they can circulate those dollars within the community. Unfortunately, yes, the Black community is one that, the dollar stays, I think, an average of like 42 minutes when it comes in, and then it goes right back out. Mm-hmm. And, we unfortunately, we are a nation of consumers, and we don't really, I'd say, practice group economics to the point that we can keep the dollars in our community a little bit longer, and we're able to circulate those dollars like they do in other communities as well. Yes. So, which I think is the lifeblood of any community. I mean, you go to some communities and, the dollar, it'll touch hands, 16, 17 times before it even leaves the community.
Yes.
Every time it's touching a hand, that's a job, that's a business. Mm-hmm. And I know this is something that when I talked to James, we talked about that, way back in the 50s. Our family owned a restaurant in St. Louis on Eastern Avenue, what it was called back then, before it was Martin Luther King, it was called the Three-Way Inn. And my mother worked there when she was in high school, and, bus tables, wash dishes, or whatever. But that's how the family took care of themselves, because, it would have been my great-great-grandmother, and they couldn't read or write, but they could cook and count, and that's how they were able to take care of the family. And specifically as it relates to, what's now Martin Luther King Drive, that was kind of like the Black Wall Street, back in the day, prior to integration, where you had all these Black businesses and where Black people spent their money within the community. And, this art is lost, in my opinion, now when we spend 98% of our dollars, outside the community. So we have other people that are living off 100% of their money and 98% of ours. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's hard for us to build wealth in this country as Black people. And the number one way, that we can build wealth is through home ownership. So it kind of goes back, to the whole, area over there in terms of being able to, establish a new era where you have, a lot of Black home ownership. And so now they can start that pathway to being able to create some generational wealth that they can pass on to their children. I think it was Chris Rock. I can't remember what the name of the movie was. I was watching him one day, and he was doing a comedy or something, but he made the statement. He said, "Well, white people die, leave a will, but Black people die, leave a bill." Unfortunately, that's the case a lot of times. So I'm really big on the economic development aspect of things. And again, I take my hat off to what you're doing there, and the mission that you have to, to provide healthcare, for our people in an area that's generally needed. And the Paul McKee as well. I say a white dude who didn't spend a whole lot of money in the Black community and getting kicked all in the rear end as a result of it. But he's a tough old dog, and I think he's going to stay there. They're going to carry him out on the stretcher, and I think he's going to be successful. I know he's got a lot of people that's against him right now, but he's got a lot of people that's for him as well too. So, and he has done. I mean, to put a hospital together, that's no small feat.
It's not
like that. And I know probably all the difference in licensing and things that you have to go through.
Yes, that was a lot of work.
One day and say, I want to start a hospital. I'm sure there's a whole lot to it in terms of regulations and rules and whatnot. So, and those are the things I believe most people don't see. They just see a finished product and don't know all the hard work and the sleepless nights and the cajoling and the things that you had to do to get it off the ground. So, I commend you for, being there and being there for the community and to be there hopefully for the long run. 10 years from now, if I'm still doing this show, hopefully it'll be nationwide at that point. but I can bring you back on the show. And
when you bring me back.
Yeah, and I'd like to bring you back maybe, a couple months from now. We'll see exactly how it's going, or maybe we just have a regular once a month. We'll bring you on and just tell us how it's going, because
you know what, Mike, I like that.
Yeah, a lot of people are curious as to how was it going to go.
Yes.
Naturally, a lot of people that don't like what's going on, they want to see it fail. I'm not one of them. I want to see us strive, and I think the climate is good right now to see a shift. And to get some younger people in there. And, a lot of the older people are dying off, unfortunately, but we got a young generation now that is smart, they know about social media. They can take this thing to the next level and really help, to create a generation of wealth based on the knowledge that they have. So, and now with all the different things, 30 years ago, we didn't have cell phones or smartphones, and you had pages and radios, and back when I was a kid, you had to go to the payphone.
The payphone.
The phone, or somebody call collect and you don't take the call. That's where hey, call collect. That way that I made it here okay, but don't accept.
Yeah, don't accept the call.
Yeah, just little stuff like that. That we used to do as I
forgot about that.
Yeah. So now we live in a global world now. If you have a product or service that you can sell it all over the world now. You got sites like Fiverr and AdWords and all sorts of things that you have any particular type of talent, you can sell it all over the world. And I think that's one of the great things now about the era that we're living in, the information age, whereby those that can capitalize on this, and I think they can do very well. So, Karen, you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, a couple of things. So one, I'm very proud of the work that we're doing. I think it's amazing being able to provide, 24/7 healthcare for this community. It hasn't been there for over 2 generations, like I said earlier. Also, I want to give a shout out to my entire family for all the support that they've given me, my family and friends. Like you said, you don't know the behind the scenes of opening a hospital and starting from the ground up. My mother, she's always saying, "Oh my gosh, you have to do that too? You have to think about that too?" She's like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." So it's a lot of work that goes into it. And it's not it's not easy. It's not. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. I'm really happy with what we're doing. And then I also want to give a shout out. I do have 3 sons. I think I have 3 adult sons.
Okay.
And they've been very supportive and I appreciate them as well. So
are they all in the St. Louis area?
They are. They're all in the St. Louis area. They are. My oldest, he has his own landscaping business. Good. And which he's doing very well. And my other 2 sons my youngest sons work with him frequently. And then my middle son works with him on occasion too when he's not doing, he has his dog business. So he's breeding dogs and help with taking care of dogs and things like that. And then my youngest works with my oldest and he does security as well. So yes, they're all 3 here. And I have 4 grandchildren.
Thought you have some entrepreneurs there. So
yes, they are entrepreneurs. They are. Yeah. Yes. They're not in the healthcare field though, but they are entrepreneurs.
Or maybe they can provide healthcare. They can go to the hospitals and do the landscaping at the hospitals. Provide the security at the hospitals. Somebody coming there with a CNI dog, they could be they could be the ones that would do that. So that's great though. Karen, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Like I said, I think, and I want to help to get the word out there about
the
hospital and the good that I think it can do for the community outside of. And again, I understand. It's not like I'm just gonna poo-poo the ones off that feel like you're doing a disservice. And I understand. There's a certain.
I respect everyone. Yeah. I respect everyone.
Yeah, certain amount of emotional attachment to it, but at the end of the day, you got a hospital there, and it wasn't none there before, in the hospital desert. And then on top of that, however big or small it might be, the legacy, the name is being carried on, because I don't think there's anything else outside of where Homer G. Phillips used to be at. I think they turned into senior housing, and I think they call it Homer G. Phillips. And that has nothing to do with medical. In my opinion, there's no problem with that, mainly because it's on the same grounds as where the hospital was, but it has nothing to do with the hospital at all. And then also, if it's that important, they need to name a street after Homer G. Just like you did Martin Luther King. Don't give me a side street. Give me Goodfellow, give me Page, give me Union, give me a street that everybody knows that now, you see where I'm going. It's like nobody gonna go down this side street and then name it, Homer G. Who cares? Give me Grand Avenue, give me St. Louis Avenue. I'm just, give me Shuttle, give me a street that when they say that street in St. Louis, everybody knows where that street is. So if you're gonna do that, let's do that. So let's take one of those streets and name it after that. So Karen, thank you so much for coming on again. You can catch the reruns of this show. Go to our YouTube channel and like us on our YouTube channel, and we're going to continue to educate our community and talk about positive things. I don't like to talk about gossipy stuff, and it's not moving us forward anywhere. I mean, let somebody else do that. I want to be able to be in the position to use this platform to be able to talk about things that's going to help us, going to help our community. And I always tell people when I tell you about our community, Black community, I am not anti-white by any means, but I'm pro-Black people in terms of what we need to do to pull ourselves up, because we're at the bottom on healthcare, we're at the bottom on income, we're at the bottom on wealth. So you want to help those that need help the most, and that's our people.
You're right.
So Karen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Hang on just for a few seconds. And folks out there, thank you for tuning in to the show. We appreciate it. And, just keep following us, and, we'll be back on hopefully soon. So thank you.